Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. My name is Dr. Zor, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down one of the most highly debated mechanics in Valorant, and that is crouching. You've likely heard before that crouching will help you be more accurate when you're shooting, and as such, you should always do it. While this definitely is the case, there's a lot more that goes into crouching that meets the eye. On paper, it seems great to do, but when we take a deep dive into how crouching works, things start to get a little muggy. This video is going to cover what crouching is, what it does for your aim, and why you should and shouldn't use it. And note, there are no typos in that phrase. Without further ado, let's break down this mysterious crouching mechanic. Jumping right into our question of the day for y'all, since this video is about crouching, we want to ask you, do you notice yourself crouching a lot when you shoot? A lot of people have developed the habit of crouching while shooting. We've all been there, and some of the top level pros continue to have this habit as well, whether they're conscious of it or not. Even if you're unsure if you crouch or not, start to consciously review your play to see if you have this habit, and it will help make a big impact on whether or not you win a duel. First up, let's talk about what the benefits of crouching are. To really see what crouching does to your aim, we recommend turning on firing error in your settings. With that turned on, you'll notice that when you crouch, your crosshair will become narrower than if you're just standing. This indicates that your accuracy has increased, so when you shoot in a crouched position, your bullets are going to land with greater precision than if you were just standing. It may be hard to notice the difference at first, but at longer ranges, you'll see that the bullets will land in a more condensed manner versus being more spread out. Case in point, you'll be able to hit more accurate shots by crouching before you shoot. The second biggest point about crouching is that it makes you a smaller target. You drastically reduce the vertical height of your player model, and as such, enemies will have less area to work with to land a shot onto you. With that being said, all seems well. Crouching makes me more accurate and it makes it harder for players to hit me. I better do it in every single fight, right? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty aspects of crouching and you'll see why this isn't as straightforward as it seems. Speaking of things that are straightforward, if you want a straightforward path to getting better in Valorant and achieving the rank of your dreams, then go to skillcapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you everything you need to blast through the rankings in Valorant. The link will be provided in the description below. Now there are a few things that we need to consider with crouching that makes it more than meets the eye. Let's break it down, shall we? First is the time it takes to crouch. Crouching isn't an immediate maneuver and will take roughly a second to get into position. Not only that, but if we go back to see the crosshair change, you'll notice that the crosshair doesn't get narrower right away. There's actually a bit of delay before this occurs. It isn't until you reach the very bottom of your crouch before your accuracy increases. For those of you who are instinctively crouching without realizing it, you're probably shooting right away after hitting the crouch key. The problem with this is that you're not actually giving time for the effects of crouching to kick in. Therefore, you aren't getting that boost in accuracy that you wanted. In order to get that accuracy boost, you have to wait until the crouch animation is completed and for your crosshair to get narrower before you shoot. This isn't really a viable thing to do during a duel though. You want to be able to shoot as quickly as possible, not wait a second to get that extra bit of accuracy. By the time that happens, the enemy could probably kill you. Second, crouching tends to mess up people's aim. When we crouch, the alignment of our crosshair will change. Let's say we have perfect crosshair placement, it's at head level and we can get into a fight. If we decide to crouch in this scenario, what happens is we end up aiming for the body instead of the head. That one tap headshot that you were about to get is now going to become a measly 30 damage, and you now have to continue shooting to get your kill when you could have finished them off in the first bullet. Now you can absolutely adjust your crosshair afterwards after crouching to get back to head level, but why go through all that extra effort when you are already set to get the headshot without crouching? You're essentially just making it harder on yourself to hit the shot when you could have kept things simpler by not crouching and you'd be good to go. Third, when you do crouch, you're essentially 100% committing to a position. Just like how it takes time for you to actually fully crouch and become accurate, it also takes time for you to uncrouch and then be able to move at full speed. This makes it nearly impossible to run away after getting into an initial engagement. For example, if we're playing on A long on Haven, we can jiggle peek A main, get into a quick skirmish with an enemy, and then simply back off at a moment's notice. Now if we were to crouch peek or crouch and hold this angle, we are way more committed to the position and fight. That extra second that it takes for you to uncrouch and run could be all the enemy needs to punish you and kill you. Now we're not saying that you shouldn't commit to your fights, but make sure that if you do so, that you're in more of a position where you're only going to get into a one-on-one engagement. If you are crouching and committing to a position where multiple players could show up, then you're going to have a much harder time getting away. You may be able to get one player, but since you're crouched, the enemy will likely be able to get a trade frag onto you. Lastly, crouching is overall just bad to do at lower elos such as bronze, iron, and silver. This is because at the lower rankings, many players don't have that perfect crosshair placement at head level that we talked about earlier. Instead, several lower ranked players actually have their crosshair aimed at the body. As a result, if you crouch at the lower rankings, you're lowering your head down and making it actually easier for them to get the headshot. If there's any rule you should 100% follow, it is to not crouch at all at any rank below Gold 3. This will only set you up for failure as you're falling right into the crosshair if you do so. Now that was quite a lot of information and negatives to throw at you, but there are scenarios that crouching can actually be beneficial, and there is a unique crouching mechanic that we'll go over in just a moment that you can capitalize on. Crouching really tends to be a negative technique to do if you just have a habit of doing it at every fight without any thought put into it. If this is the case, we first suggest actually unbinding your crouch key. This will help you start to build a habit of just shooting while standing, which is going to be the optimal play for most scenarios. It keeps your crosshair placement in check and helps you avoid overcommitting into a position that you don't want to be heavily invested into. Once we have broken our habit of crouching all the time, we can start to introduce the keybind back and begin thinking about crouching with a purpose. There are two scenarios where crouching is going to be a good thing to do. The first is when it helps you get into more cover, thus exposing less of your body during a fight. A few examples of this on Haven is the haystacks right outside of grass. That's great for catching players who push aggressively out of garage or middle. The other example is getting into the surprise off angle on the back of C, giving you a off angle where you can shoot at fully exposed enemies pushing garage or C long while they can only see your head and part of your body. The second scenario is going to be more complex and require more thought, but you're going to want to crouch if your enemy crouches first. If your enemy crouches and you initially had your crosshair at head level, for a standing player, you're going to end up missing your shots. Rather than trying to pull down significantly further, what you can do instead is just crouch down yourself. What this will do is essentially drop your crosshair back down to their head. You don't need to move your mouse any more than usual. Crouching will do all of that extra work for you, making for a much easier kill. Again, this is going to be something that takes practice. Consciously noticing if a player crouches and being able to react to that crouch is extremely difficult, but if done appropriately, you'll absolutely dominate those players. Try to keep this in mind in your games. Identify the enemy's habits. If they don't tend to crouch, then you don't really need to either for most fights, unless you're getting into a headshot only position. If you see them crouch, then you need to quickly adapt and crouch yourself to get your crosshair placement back in check. With that being said, there is one unique crouching mechanic that will really take your aim to the next level. Now, there are going to be times where you try to go for a headshot onto your enemy, but you end up aiming too high and whiffing. Or perhaps you try to hit the headshot, but you end up hitting the body instead, and you have trouble controlling the recoil and you end up hitting above their head again. What you can do in these situations is taking advantage of crouching. If you whiff your initial bullets, more likely than not, you're shooting way above their head and you're having trouble controlling the recoil. What you can do to help tame that recoil is by crouching. Shoot those initial 8 or so bullets, and if you fail to get the kill at that point, hit crouch. This will help bring your bullets back down, making it more likely for you to hit a headshot or body shot onto the enemy from that point forward. Several pros will actually use this technique as well when they whiff their initial shots. Crouching in those scenarios helps bring their aim back to head level, thus enabling them to better get those frags that they were about to miss. Try this out and you'll notice instantly that you're better able to get your sprays under control after your initial few bullets. Alright, so if you haven't already, make sure to leave a comment on whether you feel you have developed a habit for crouching. Again, crouching isn't inherently bad unless it's done habitually. If used at the right moments, you can absolutely crush your enemies with it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.